What if everything you know about strength is a lie? What if the way you've been fighting to stay strong is the very thing making you weak? Imagine discovering that the relentless pursuit of being unbreakable is actually what's breaking you. You're about to learn a powerful Buddhist secret that flips everything you thought you knew about resilience, and it's so shocking, it might just change how you live your life forever. Keep watching, because this one insight could be the difference between staying stuck and finally breaking free. 1. Cultivate the habit of embracing contradiction. Have you ever felt torn between two sides of yourself? Maybe one part of you feels strong and confident, while another feels vulnerable and unsure. Or perhaps there's a moment when you're incredibly motivated, but at the same time, fear holds you back. It might seem like these contradictions are a weakness, but what if they are actually your greatest strength? In Buddhism, there's a deep understanding that duality is a natural part of being human. We are not just one thing. We can feel brave and scared at the same time. We can be wise in one moment and make mistakes in the next. The problem is that most of us struggle with this reality. We try to choose one version of ourselves and reject the rest. We think that being emotionally strong means being consistent and always in control, but that's not true. Real emotional resilience comes from accepting all parts of yourself, even the contradictory ones. Imagine standing at a crossroads with two paths in front of you. One represents strength, and the other represents vulnerability. Most of us think we have to pick one, but in reality, life is more like walking between those paths, allowing yourself to feel both strong and vulnerable at the same time. The moment you accept that you can have conflicting feelings without having to choose between them, you start to become emotionally unbreakable. Instead of fighting against your own nature, try to simply observe your feelings as they arise. When you're feeling both confident and uncertain, acknowledge it without judgment. Tell yourself, it's okay to feel both. When you practice this, something amazing happens. The tension between your feelings softens. You begin to see that being both strong and vulnerable doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. This mindset also changes how you deal with challenges. Let's say you're facing a situation where you feel both courageous and fearful. Instead of suppressing one emotion to make room for the other, accept that they coexist. Acknowledge your courage while also admitting your fear. This acceptance doesn't make you less brave. It actually makes your bravery more authentic because it's grounded in reality. One way to practice this is through mindful reflection. Whenever you feel two opposing emotions, take a deep breath and let both feelings exist without trying to push one away. You might say to yourself, right now I feel strong but also scared, and that's okay. This simple practice helps you see that your mind is not broken just because it feels pulled in different directions. It's just being honest about your experience. When you make this a habit, something powerful happens. Your sense of self becomes more flexible. You stop labeling yourself as just one thing, strong or weak, brave or fearful. Instead, you become someone who can handle the complexity of life without being overwhelmed. Your strength doesn't come from always feeling powerful. It comes from accepting that power and vulnerability can live side by side within you. This way of thinking also changes how you view your past. Think about a time when you felt ashamed for not being strong enough. Maybe you thought, why did I let fear control me? Instead of seeing that moment as a failure, realize that it was just a moment where your strength and vulnerability existed together. Forgive yourself for not being purely strong and appreciate the fact that you had the courage to feel afraid. When you embrace your contradictions, you become less rigid and more adaptable. You don't fall apart when life challenges you because you're not trying to force yourself into a single way of being. You're allowing your emotions to be complex without labeling them as good or bad. This acceptance makes you resilient, not because you're unaffected by life, but because you're able to carry all parts of yourself through any situation. The next time you feel like you're being pulled in opposite directions emotionally, remember this: you don't have to choose one side. You can be both strong and scared, both wise and unsure, both peaceful and frustrated. It's okay to be more than one thing at once. That's not weakness, it's complexity, and within that complexity lies your unbreakable strength. 2. Practice silent wisdom. Have you ever noticed how often we feel the need to respond, to justify, to explain ourselves when someone challenges or criticizes us? In today's world, silence can feel like weakness, like we're letting others walk all over us. But what if silence is actually your greatest power? What if choosing not to react could make you emotionally unbreakable? Buddhism teaches the profound value of silent wisdom, a practice that helps you maintain your peace and dignity no matter what's happening around you. It's about mastering the art of not reacting when the world is pulling you in every direction. This isn't just about staying quiet, it's about finding strength in restraint. Imagine a moment when someone provokes you. Maybe a friend criticizes your decisions or a stranger insults you. The natural response is to defend yourself, to argue back, to prove that you're right. But what if, instead of reacting, you took a deep breath, looked them in the eye, and said nothing? Imagine the impact that silence would have. It's not that you're being passive or weak. You're choosing to conserve your energy, to keep your peace intact. This silence speaks louder than words. The truth is, not every situation deserves your reaction. Not every comment needs a response. In Buddhism, silence is not about submission, it's about control. You're choosing not to let someone else's words dictate your emotions. When you practice silent wisdom, you're saying, "I value my peace more than this argument." It's an act of power, not weakness. Think about how much energy we waste trying to prove ourselves to people who are committed to misunderstanding us. You explain, you argue, you pour out your thoughts, and still, they twist your words or refuse to see your point. Silent wisdom frees you from this exhausting cycle. When you choose silence, you're refusing to play the game. You're saying, "I know my truth, and I don't need your validation." But silent wisdom doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or letting people disrespect you. It means choosing when and how to respond in a way that protects your peace. Sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is walking away with your dignity intact. Silence in these moments is not about cowardice, it's about deciding what deserves your attention and what doesn't. One powerful Buddhist story illustrates this perfectly. A monk was sitting in meditation when a stranger approached him and began hurling insults. The monk remained still, not reacting, just breathing calmly. Eventually, the stranger got frustrated and asked, "Why aren't you saying anything? Aren't you angry?" The monk replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, who does the gift belong to?" The stranger replied, "To the one who offered it." The monk smiled and said, "Then I do not accept your anger. It belongs to you." This story shows that not all negative energy needs to be absorbed. By practicing silent wisdom, you're choosing not to accept the gift of negativity. You're letting it stay with the person who brought it. In real life, this can mean not replying to a hateful comment, not arguing when someone is trying to provoke you, or simply taking a step back when emotions are high. But how do you practice silent wisdom when your emotions are boiling inside you? It's not easy. The key is to train your mind before the storm hits. Start by practicing mindfulness meditation. Sit quietly each day and focus on your breath. Notice the thoughts that arise without judging them. Let them pass like clouds drifting across the sky. This practice helps you develop the ability to observe your emotions without reacting impulsively. When you're in a situation where you feel the urge to react, remind yourself that silence is an option. Take a slow, deep breath and mentally say, "I choose peace." You can still acknowledge your feelings, anger, frustration, hurt, but you don't have to act on them immediately. Give yourself permission to pause. You might worry that staying silent makes you appear weak or indifferent, but in reality, silence often commands more respect than words. It shows that you are in control of your reactions. It shows that you value your peace more than petty conflicts. Over time, people will learn that they cannot easily manipulate your emotions. They will recognize that your silence is not weakness, but wisdom. Practicing silent wisdom also teaches you to listen more deeply. Instead of preparing your next argument while someone is speaking, truly listen. You might find that their anger has nothing to do with you. It's a reflection of their own struggles. By choosing silence, you give them space to express themselves without adding fuel to the fire. And sometimes, that's all they really need, someone to listen without judgment. Another benefit of silent wisdom is that it keeps you from saying things you might regret. When you respond out of anger or hurts, words can become weapons. Silence gives you time to process, to reflect on how you really feel, and to decide if it's even worth responding. It's like putting a protective shield around your emotions, letting the negativity pass by without touching your inner peace. This doesn't mean you should never stand up for yourself. There will be times when speaking out is necessary. But the difference is that your words will come from a place of calm clarity rather than reactive anger. Your voice will be stronger because it's not driven by impulse. Start practicing silent wisdom today. The next time someone tries to provoke you, just pause. Let the moment pass without feeding into it. You'll feel an unexpected surge of power, not because you won the argument, but because you didn't let the situation control you. You chose your response wisely. Over time, you'll notice a profound change in your relationships and your inner world. You'll be less stressed, less emotionally drained, and more in control of your reactions. You'll become unbreakable, not because you never feel hurt or anger, but because you know how to protect your peace. Silent wisdom is not just a technique, it's a lifestyle. It's the decision to value your mental and emotional well-being over temporary satisfaction. It's choosing strength over chaos, control over impulsiveness, and peace over conflict. Make this habit a part of your life, and watch how it transforms not just your reactions, but your entire mindset. When you practice silent wisdom, you're not just staying quiet, you're reclaiming your power. You're proving to yourself that you don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to fight every battle. Sometimes, the strongest move is to say nothing at all. In that silence lies your unbreakable strength. 3. Develop a habit of compassionate non-interference. Have you ever felt the urge to step in and fix someone else's problem? Maybe it's a friend who keeps making the same mistake, or a family member caught in a toxic relationship. You feel responsible, like you need to help them see the truth, make the right choice, or save them from their own decisions. It feels almost instinctive. If you care, you intervene. But what if that very act of interference is actually causing more harm than good? Buddhism teaches that true compassion doesn't always mean stepping in and taking control. Sometimes it means allowing others the freedom to make their own choices, even when those choices might lead to pain or failure. This might sound counterintuitive. How can you care and still let them make mistakes? But this habit, known as compassionate non-interference, is about respecting someone else's journey while also protecting your own peace. Think about it. When you constantly intervene, you're sending a subtle message. You're telling the other person, I don't believe you can handle this on your own. It may come from a place of love, but it also takes away their agency and growth. You might think you're helping, but in reality, you might be preventing them from learning important life lessons. Imagine watching a butterfly struggle to emerge from its cocoon. If you decide to help by cutting the cocoon open, you might think you're being kind, but in doing so, you prevent the butterfly from strengthening its wings, dooming it to a life where it can't fly. People too need their struggles to grow. Just as the butterfly needs to break free on its own, people need the space to face their challenges. It's not easy to watch someone you love make mistakes. The instinct to protect and guide is strong, but compassionate non-interference teaches you to balance your care with respect for the other person's path. It's about loving without controlling. You can offer support, advice if asked, and encouragement, but you also trust them to walk their own journey, even if it's messy or painful. But how do you practice this when your heart is aching to step in? Start by shifting your mindset. Instead of showing yourself as a rescuer, see yourself as a supporter. Remind yourself that everyone has their own lessons to learn, and sometimes pain is a necessary teacher. When you feel the urge to interfere, take a step back and ask yourself, am I trying to help for their benefit or to ease my own discomfort? Compassionate non-interference doesn't mean being cold or indifferent. It means showing love in a way that empowers rather than overpowers. It's saying, I believe in your strength to handle this. It's standing by their side without trying to lead the way. This approach not only respects their autonomy, but also strengthens your relationship. When people feel trusted rather than controlled, they're more likely to open up to you. One way to practice this habit is by offering gentle guidance rather than directives. Instead of saying, you need to leave that toxic relationship, try saying, I'm here for you no matter what you decide. I believe you'll find the best path for yourself. This way, you're showing love without taking away their power of choice. Sometimes, your support might simply be being present, just listening without judgment or advice. This can be more powerful than trying to fix the situation. People often just need someone to hear them out, not necessarily someone to solve their problems. By being that calm, non-judgmental presence, you give them space to process their feelings and come to their own conclusion. You might wonder if this means letting people hurt themselves or repeat destructive patterns. The truth is, you can't protect someone from their own journey. You can't force someone to heal, change, or see things from your perspective. And when you try too hard, you risk damaging your relationship. People may feel suffocated or resentful when they sense that you're not giving them the space to make their own choices. To practice compassionate non-interference, focus on being a safe space rather than a problem solver. Let your loved ones know that you support them no matter what. Encourage them to share their thoughts without fear of judgment. If they ask for advice, offer it gently and make it clear that they're not obligated to follow it. Say things like, this is just my perspective, you know your situation best. This practice also applies to dealing with yourself. Sometimes we interfere with our own growth by constantly criticizing ourselves, forcing change, or rejecting our own feelings. Instead, practice compassionate non-interference with yourself by allowing your emotions to exist without trying to control them. Acknowledge your pain without immediately trying to fix it. Trust that you will grow from it in your own time. Compassionate non-interference is not about abandoning those you care about. It's about giving them the gift of autonomy and growth. It's about stepping back, not because you don't care, but because you trust their resilience. Realize that sometimes your presence, without your intervention, is enough. Your quiet support can be more powerful than words or actions. If you find yourself feeling anxious or helpless when you don't intervene, remind yourself of the butterfly. Understand that struggle builds strength. Your role is not to shield them from every hardship, but to walk beside them, offering love without pressure. Be the person they can lean on when they choose, not the one dragging them to where you think they should be. The beauty of this practice is that it doesn't just make you emotionally resilient, it also empowers those around you. They start to see themselves as capable, as having the ability to handle life's challenges. They learn that they are not alone, but they are also not dependent on you for every step. In this way, your relationship becomes healthier and more balanced. Practicing compassionate non-interference also helps you protect your own peace. You learn to let go of the guilt that comes from not being able to fix everything. You learn that loving someone doesn't mean carrying their burdens for them. Instead, it means walking beside them, allowing them to experience life fully, with its pain and its beauty. The next time you feel the urge to step in, take a deep breath and remind yourself, love does not mean control. I trust their path. Your heart will feel lighter and your relationships will deepen. Sometimes, the best way to help is to simply let go and allow life to unfold. In that space of non-interference, real growth happens, for them and for you. 4. Engage in reverse gratitude. Have you ever found yourself drowning in regret, wishing that things had turned out differently? Maybe you lost a relationship that meant everything to you. Maybe a career opportunity slipped through your fingers, or someone you trusted deeply betrayed you. It's natural to feel sadness, anger, or even bitterness in these moments. But what if I told you that there's a way to transform that pain into power? In Buddhism, there's a practice called reverse gratitude, and it's one of the most powerful habits you can develop to become emotionally unbreakable. Instead of being grateful only for the good things, reverse gratitude teaches you to be thankful for your struggles, your losses, and your mistakes. It's about seeing the hidden blessings wrapped in pain, the lessons disguised as setbacks. Imagine this. You're standing in front of a mirror, reflecting on a moment that broke you. Maybe it was a failed relationship that left you questioning your worth. Maybe it was losing a job you thought you'd have forever. In that moment, it's hard to see anything but pain. But what if, instead of rejecting that memory, you whispered to yourself, "Thank you"? It sounds almost impossible, doesn't it? Why would you thank something that hurt you? The answer lies in how pain shapes us. Every hardship you've faced has taught you something about yourself, your strength, your resilience, your ability to endure. Reverse gratitude is about recognizing that these painful moments were not just obstacles, but opportunities to grow. Think about a time when you faced a significant challenge. Maybe it was an unexpected betrayal that shattered your trust. In that moment, it felt like your world was collapsing. But looking back now, do you see how it made you wiser? How it taught you to set healthier boundaries or value your own worth more deeply? That's what reverse gratitude is. Looking at your past with a new perspective, one that acknowledges the growth that came from the pain. But how do you practice this in a way that feels genuine rather than forced? Start small. Choose one difficult memory, a time you felt lost, rejected, or broken. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. Let that memory come to the surface, and instead of pushing it away, invite it in. Acknowledge the hurt. Say to yourself, "I'm grateful for this experience because it taught me something valuable." It's okay if this feels uncomfortable at first. You might feel resistance or even anger. That's normal. But don't rush the process. You're not forcing yourself to suddenly love your pain. You're simply allowing yourself to see it differently. Reverse gratitude doesn't mean you're happy about what happened. It means you recognize that even pain has shaped you into who you are today. Take another example. Maybe you didn't get the job you desperately wanted. At the time, it felt devastating. You questioned your abilities and doubted your future. But later, that rejection led you to a better opportunity, one that aligned more with your true passion. Reverse gratitude means being thankful not just for the success that came later, but for the rejection itself, because it redirected you towards something better. Sometimes, the hardest part is letting go of the belief that life is supposed to be fair. We cling to the idea that if we do good, good things should always come our way. But life doesn't work that way, and expecting it to sets us up for disappointment. Reverse gratitude helps you break that mindset. Instead of seeing struggles as unfair, you begin to see them as part of your journey. Imagine planting a seed and expecting it to grow without any storms. In reality, it's the harsh winds and heavy rains that strengthen the roots, making the plant resilient. Your hardships are like those storms. They force you to dig deeper, to find strength you didn't know you had. Reverse gratitude teaches you to appreciate the storms for making you stronger, not just the sunny days. One way to make reverse gratitude a habit is through journaling. Each week, write down one challenge you faced and reflect on what it taught you. At first, you might struggle to find the lesson. That's okay. The point is not to force positivity, but to gently shift your perspective. Over time, you'll start seeing patterns, how every mistake taught you resilience. This practice also changes how you view yourself. Often we carry shame from past failures or guilt from our mistakes. Reverse gratitude helps you forgive yourself because it reframes your errors as part of your human experience. You start seeing your flaws not as proof of weakness, but as steps in your journey to become wiser and more compassionate. Reverse gratitude also makes you more empathetic toward others. When you understand how pain has shaped you, you're more likely to see the same in others. Instead of judging people for their struggles, you recognize that they too are shaped by their own storms. This mindset fosters deeper connections and understanding. There's also something liberating about reclaiming painful memories. When you practice reverse gratitude, you take back control from the hurt. You're no longer just a victim of what happened. You become the author of your own narrative. You say, yes, this hurt me. Yes, it changed me, but it also taught me how to rise. Think of reverse gratitude as a way of weaving gold into the cracks of your soul. You're not ignoring your pain or pretending it didn't happen. Instead, you're honoring it for making you more resilient, more aware, more human. This practice doesn't make the pain disappear, but it transforms how you carry it. You no longer see it as a burden, but as part of your unique, unbreakable story. Whenever life knocks you down, take a moment to practice reverse gratitude. Don't rush to find the lesson immediately. Sometimes it takes time to see the purpose behind the pain. Just start by saying, I may not understand this now, but one day I will see how it shaped me. Trust that your struggles are not just random misfortunes. They are essential parts of your evolution. Over time, you'll notice a profound shift in your mindset. Instead of fearing challenges, you'll start embracing them as opportunities to grow. You'll become emotionally unbreakable, not because life doesn't hurt you, but because you've learned to find power in every experience, even the painful ones. You'll walk with a quiet confidence, knowing that nothing in life can truly break you, because even in your hardest moments, you find a way to transform pain into purpose. 5. Create a ritual of intentional imperfection. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the pressure to be perfect? Maybe it's the need to always make the right decision, to never show weakness, or to constantly meet expectations, whether they're from family, friends, or even yourself. This relentless pursuit of perfection can feel suffocating. One tiny mistake and suddenly it feels like the world is falling apart. But what if I told you that perfection is not only unrealistic but also unnecessary? In fact, Buddhism teaches that our imperfections are not just part of being human, they are essential to our growth and understanding. Instead of trying to be flawless, there's immense power in intentionally embracing imperfection. Imagine creating a ritual that not only accepts your flaws, but celebrates them. This practice is known as intentional imperfection, and it's one of the most liberating habits you can develop. It teaches you to purposefully allow small flaws in your daily life as a reminder that perfection is neither required nor expected. Instead of feeling ashamed of your mistakes, you start to see them as meaningful and even beautiful. Think of the ancient Japanese art of kintsugi. When a piece of pottery breaks, it's repaired with gold, highlighting the cracks rather than hiding them. The philosophy behind it is simple. The breakage becomes part of the object's history, adding to its beauty and uniqueness. Intentional imperfection works the same way for your soul. You don't hide your flaws, you highlight them, allowing them to shape who you are. To practice this, start small. Pick a simple, everyday activity, like drawing, cooking, or writing. Now, intentionally make it imperfect. Draw a picture, but don't worry about straight lines. Cook a dish without obsessing over perfect presentation. Write a journal entry without correcting your grammar. At first, it may feel awkward, as if you're deliberately lowering your standards. But that's the point. You're breaking the habit of equating your worth with perfection. You see, perfectionism isn't about high standards. It's about fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough. By practicing intentional imperfection, you train your mind to let go of that fear. You realize that not every effort needs to be flawless to be valuable. This simple ritual gives you the courage to be authentic, to present yourself as you truly are without the mask of perfection. One of the most powerful ways to incorporate intentional imperfection is through creativity. If you love painting, allow yourself to create something messy and unpolished. Don't erase the lines or fix the colors. Just let it be. If you enjoy singing, sing a song without worrying about hitting every note perfectly. When you embrace these small imperfections, you'll feel a sense of freedom and relief. You'll realize that the beauty of your effort lies not in its flawlessness, but in its authenticity. This practice also applies to how you present yourself to others. Social media can make it feel like everyone else has their life perfectly together. But instead of curating a perfect image, try sharing something real. Post a picture where your hair isn't perfect, or where your workspace looks a bit cluttered. Share a story about a mistake that taught you something valuable. You'll be surprised how many people resonate with your honesty. Another way to embrace intentional imperfection is to start each day with a small ritual that acknowledges your humanity. Before you begin your tasks, take a moment to remind yourself, "Today I will make mistakes, and that's okay. I will not judge myself for being human." This affirmation sets the tone for a day filled with grace, not pressure. Sometimes we think that showing imperfection makes us appear weak or less competent. But have you ever noticed that when someone admits their mistakes or shares their struggles, you actually feel closer to them? It's because vulnerability is relatable. It's real. When you allow yourself to be imperfect, you give others permission to do the same. You create connections based on truth rather than performance. One practical ritual is to create something intentionally imperfect once a week. You could write a poem where the lines don't quite rhyme, bake a cake that's a little lopsided, make a craft project with mismatched colors. These small acts train your brain to appreciate the beauty in imperfection. Over time, you'll stop being so harsh on yourself in other areas of life too. But why is this so important for emotional resilience? Because striving for perfection makes you fragile. One mistake and it feels like your entire worth is in question. When you practice intentional imperfection, you build emotional flexibility. You learn to bend without breaking. You become someone who can say, "Yes, I made a mistake, and that's part of my journey." Imagine giving a speech and stumbling over a few words. Instead of freezing or apologizing, you smile and say, "Well, that didn't come out as planned, but let's keep going." That simple moment of embracing your imperfection shows confidence and grace. It tells the world that you are comfortable being real. Sometimes the fear of imperfection keeps us from trying new things. We avoid new hobbies because we're not instantly good at them. We hold back in relationships because we're afraid of messing up. But when you practice intentional imperfection, you become braver. You give yourself the freedom to try, to fail, and to learn without the fear of being judged. There's a beautiful saying in Zen, "Perfection is not when there is no more to add, but no more to take away." It means that sometimes our flaws complete the picture. They add depth, character, and story to our lives. Your imperfections make you unique. They remind you that you are human, and being human means being beautifully imperfect. When you make intentional imperfection a ritual, you'll notice a profound change in how you see yourself. You'll stop feeling trapped by unrealistic standards. You'll start celebrating progress rather than perfection. And most importantly, you'll feel a deeper sense of peace, knowing that you don't have to be flawless to be worthy of love and respect. So the next time you catch yourself stressing over getting everything right, pause and remind yourself, I am allowed to be imperfect. My worth is not measured by perfection. Make space in your life for mistakes, flaws, and awkward moments. Let them be a reminder that you are alive, learning and growing. When you intentionally embrace your imperfections, you stop being afraid of them. Instead of being something to hide, they become something to celebrate. You realize that true strength isn't about being flawless, it's about being real. In this authenticity lies your emotional resilience, your unbreakable spirit, and your undeniable humanity. 6. Master the art of emotional recycling. Have you ever been overwhelmed by your own emotions? Maybe you felt anger that you couldn't control, sadness that wouldn't fade, or fear that seemed to consume your thoughts. Emotions can feel heavy, like they're weighing you down, trapping you in a cycle of negativity. But what if I told you that you don't have to be a prisoner to your feelings? What if you could take those emotions, no matter how intense or painful, and turn them into something powerful and positive? Buddhism teaches that emotions are not inherently good or bad. They are energy, and just like energy, emotions can be transformed. This is the essence of emotional recycling, taking the raw, intense feelings you experience and consciously converting them into something useful, beautiful, or empowering. Imagine turning your deepest sadness into a creative masterpiece, or channeling your anger into motivation to change your life. The first step in mastering emotional recycling is to recognize your emotions as they arise, without immediately judging them. Most of us tend to label our emotions. Anger is bad, happiness is good, fear is weakness. But in reality, emotions are just signals, messages from your inner world, telling you that something needs attention. Instead of pushing them away, welcome them as visitors. Acknowledge their presence without resistance. Think about anger for a moment. It's a powerful emotion, often dismissed as destructive. But anger is just passion that has been hurt or wronged. Instead of lashing out, emotional recycling teaches you to sit with that anger and ask, what is this passion trying to tell me? Maybe it's urging you to stand up for yourself, to address an injustice, or to change a situation you've been tolerating for too long. Transform that energy into purposeful action, whether it's setting boundaries, speaking your truth, or channeling it into a project that drives positive change. Sadness is another emotion that often feels paralyzing. We think of it as something to escape from. But what if sadness could become a wellspring of creativity? Many of the world's most beautiful songs, poems, and works of art were born from sorrow. Instead of drowning in sadness, allow it to fuel your expression. Write about it, paint it, or turn it into a story. When you give your sadness a voice, it becomes lighter, more manageable. You're no longer just suffering, you're creating. One practical way to practice emotional recycling is through creative rituals. Set aside time when you're feeling overwhelmed. Take a journal and write without censoring yourself. Let every raw, angry, or sorrowful thought spill onto the page. Then read it back with compassion. See your pain as a story, one that deserves to be heard, not silenced. From there, think about how you can transform it. Could those words become lyrics, poetry, or a personal essay? Could that frustration become a plan to improve your situation? Fear is another emotion that often paralyzes us. But Buddhism teaches that fear, at its core, is a heightened awareness of risk or danger. Instead of letting fear make you small, use it as a guide. Ask yourself, what am I truly afraid of? Once you pinpoint the root cause, let that awareness fuel preparation and planning. If you fear failure, break down your goal into smaller steps so success feels more attainable. If you fear loss, Use that awareness to appreciate what you have while you still have it. Grief is perhaps one of the heaviest emotions to recycle. It feels like a void that nothing can fill. But what if grief could become a way to honor what you've lost? Instead of pushing away memories that bring pain, transform them into rituals of remembrance. Create something in honor of the person you miss. A garden, a letter, a project that reflects their spirit. This way, your grief doesn't just sit inside you. It moves, it transforms, it gives back. Another essential aspect of emotional recycling is shifting from a victim mindset to a creator mindset. Instead of thinking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I create from this experience?" This question empowers you. It shifts your focus from helplessness to action. You're no longer just enduring your emotions. You're actively shaping them into something purposeful. It's important to remember that recycling emotions doesn't mean denying or minimizing them. You're not pretending that anger isn't painful or that grief doesn't ache. Instead, you're honoring the emotion by giving it a new form. Think of it like composting. You take the scraps, the things that seem useless or ugly, and turn them into rich soil that nourishes growth. One way to practice this is through movement. When you're filled with restless energy, whether it's anxiety or frustration, channel it into physical activity. Go for a run, practice yoga, or dance to your favorite song. As you move, visualize the emotion flowing through your body and out into the world. You're not suppressing it, you're releasing it in a healthy way. Sometimes, the transformation doesn't happen instantly. You may still feel the pain even as you're trying to repurpose it. That's okay. Emotional recycling is a practice, not a quick fix. The goal is not to eliminate the emotion, but to prevent it from consuming you. With time, you'll notice that what once felt unbearable becomes manageable, even motivating. In Buddhism, there's a story of a monk who carried a heavy sack wherever he went. One day he decided to open it and found it filled with stones, each representing a hurt or disappointment. He realized he had been carrying unnecessary weight all along. Emotional recycling is like examining that sack, recognizing each stone, and deciding to turn it into something new. When you master the art of emotional recycling, you become resilient. You no longer fear your feelings because you know how to work with them. Anger doesn't destroy you, it ignites change. Sadness doesn't drown you, it fuels creation. Fear doesn't paralyze you, it sharpens your focus. You become emotionally unbreakable, not because you never feel pain, but because you know how to transform it. Start practicing today. The next time you feel overwhelmed, take a moment to acknowledge the emotion. Say to yourself, "This is energy, I can choose how to use it." Then, direct it into something purposeful, a creative project, a positive action, or a personal reflection. You'll find that your emotions no longer control you. Instead, they become your allies in growth. Emotional recycling doesn't make life's challenges disappear, but it gives you the strength to transform your struggles into stepping stones. You become the creator of your own experience, using even your most difficult feelings to build something beautiful, resilient, and enduring. That is the power of emotional recycling, turning what tries to break you into the very thing that makes you stronger. 7. Develop a habit of transient identity. Have you ever felt trapped by your own identity? Maybe you've labeled yourself as the strong one, the responsible one, or the one who always has it together. Or perhaps you've been stuck in a story that someone else wrote for you, a role you never chose but somehow ended up playing. It's easy to get caught in these identities, wearing them like armor to protect yourself. But what happens when life challenges that identity? When being the strong one becomes exhausting, or when trying to be perfect makes you feel like you're falling apart? Buddhism teaches us something profound. Our identities are not fixed. They are fluid, constantly changing, just like everything else in life. This is known as transient identity, the practice of embracing change within yourself. It means understanding that who you are is not set in stone. You are not just one thing. You are a constantly evolving being. Imagine your identity as a flowing river rather than a solid rock. The water never stays the same. It moves, changes direction, and adapts to the landscape. When you see yourself this way, you stop being rigid. You stop trying to fit into labels or roles that no longer serve you. You become adaptable, resilient, and free. One of the biggest struggles in life comes from the fear of losing our identity. We hold on to it tightly because it gives us a sense of control and security. But the truth is, clinging to a single version of yourself can be your biggest limitation. Think about a time when a situation forced you to change. A job loss, a breakup, or a sudden life transition. If you're too attached to your old identity, the change can feel like losing a part of your. But if you allow yourself to adapt, you discover new strengths, new perspectives, and a more expansive version of who you are. To practice transient identity, start by questioning the labels you have given yourself. Who told you that you are the responsible one, or that you always have to be strong? Sometimes, these identities were imposed on you by family, society, or past experiences. Just because you once played that role doesn't mean you have to stay in it forever. Take a moment to reflect. Are you still holding on to an identity that no longer fits? Maybe you've always been the one who never asks for help, but lately you feel overwhelmed. Maybe you've been the achiever, but now you crave simplicity. Allow yourself the freedom to evolve. You don't have to be who you were yesterday. One way to practice this mindset is to create a ritual of shedding old identities. Once a month, sit quietly with a piece of paper. Write down the roles or labels you feel stuck in, like the caretaker, the successful one, or the fearless leader. Then, reflect on whether these identities are still serving you. If not, gently let them go by crossing them out and writing, "I am free to change." When you release outdated identities, you open up space for new aspects of yourself to emerge. Maybe you'll discover that you enjoy being vulnerable sometimes, or that you don't always need to have the answers. This freedom allows you to live more authentically, without the pressure to live up to an old version of yourself. Transient identity also means being kind to yourself when you change. Sometimes, people around you may not understand why you're no longer fitting into the role they expect. You might feel pressure to stay the same for their comfort. But remember, your journey is your own. It's okay to evolve, even if others aren't ready for it. In relationships, this habit becomes even more important. Sometimes, we hold on to a version of someone else that no longer exists. We expect them to act the way they did years ago, not realizing they too are evolving. When you embrace transient identity for yourself, you also learn to give others the space to grow and change. This mindset deepens your connections because you're not holding people to outdated expectations. Another practical way to practice transient identity is to explore new aspects of yourself regularly. Try a hobby that's completely different from what you usually do. Take a course on something unrelated to your career. Meet people who challenge your usual way of thinking. When you do this, you start to see that your identity is not limited to your job, your role in the family, or your past achievements. You are a dynamic, multidimensional being. Think of transient identity like being an actor who can play different roles in different seasons of life. Sometimes you are the leader, other times you are the learner. Sometimes you are the caregiver, other times you need care. None of these roles define you. They are simply expressions of who you are at any given moment. One of the most liberating aspects of transient identity is that it allows you to forgive yourself. Often we carry guilt from past mistakes because we can't reconcile them with our current self. But when you see your identity as fluid, you realize that the person who made those mistakes was a different version of you, one who was still learning and growing. You don't have to hold your past against your present. To internalize this mindset, practice saying to yourself, I am allowed to change. I am not the same person I was last year, last month, or even yesterday. And that's okay. Embrace this truth every day, especially when you feel pressure to fit into old roles. Give yourself permission to evolve, to explore new parts of yourself without guilt or fear. Transient identity also helps you handle criticism better. When someone judges you based on who you used to be, it's easier to let go of their opinion. You can say, that's who I was, but I'm not defined by my past. You learn to move forward without being weighed down by outdated perceptions. When you develop a habit of transient identity, you become unbreakable because you are not rigid. Life can't shatter you when you are adaptable. You are like water, flowing, moving and reshaping yourself to fit whatever situation arises. You don't resist change. You flow with it, finding new strength with each transformation. This habit doesn't mean losing your core values or forgetting who you are. Instead, it means recognizing that your essence is not tied to one version of yourself. You can change jobs, relationships, locations, and even mindsets without feeling like you've lost yourself. You're simply allowing your true self to express itself differently as life evolves. Start practicing transient identity today. When you wake up tomorrow, instead of repeating yesterday's version of yourself, ask, who am I today? What do I want to explore? What old labels can I release? Embrace change as a natural part of growth. You'll find that instead of fearing transitions, you start to welcome them, knowing that every change is just another chapter in your ongoing story. When you let go of rigid identities, you become lighter, more flexible, and more at peace. You learn to live in the present, fully accepting the person you are becoming. And that mindset makes you emotionally unbreakable because you are no longer limited by the past or constrained by outdated expectations. You are free to evolve, to transform, and to continuously rediscover your truest self. 8. Cultivate inward generosity. Have you ever felt emotionally drained from constantly giving to others? You go out of your way to support your friends, be there for your family, and meet everyone's expectations. You give your time, your energy, your love, sometimes to the point where there's nothing left for yourself. And when it's time to ask for help, you hesitate, thinking it would be selfish. You've been taught that generosity means sacrificing your own well-being for the sake of others. But Buddhism teaches a different perspective, one that could completely transform how you see yourself and your relationships. It's the practice of inward generosity, giving to yourself without guilt, replenishing your own well-being so that you can genuinely give to others from a place of abundance rather than exhaustion. Think of it this way: if you're a well that's constantly being drawn from without ever being refilled, you'll eventually run dry. No matter how strong or resilient you are, there comes a point where you just can't give anymore. Inward generosity means learning to refill your own well, so you have something meaningful to offer without depleting yourself. But how do you start being generous with yourself without feeling selfish? It begins with recognizing that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. You are not a machine designed to serve endlessly. You're a human being who needs love, care, rest, and compassion. Inward generosity is not about putting yourself above others. It's about valuing yourself enough to maintain your own well-being. Start with simple acts of kindness directed toward yourself. When you wake up in the morning, instead of immediately rushing into tasks, take a moment to greet yourself. Say, "Good morning. I hope today is gentle and kind." It might feel unusual at first, but this small acknowledgement sets a tone of self-respect and warmth. Another powerful way to practice inward generosity is through mindful nourishment. Instead of just eating to fuel your body, make meals an act of self-care. Choose foods that nurture you and take the time to savor them. You deserve to eat well, not just for survival but for joy and health. As you eat, remind yourself that you're giving your body what it needs to thrive. Self-talk is another area where inward generosity can change your life. Pay attention to the way you speak to yourself, especially when you make a mistake. Instead of harshly criticizing yourself, practice speaking as you would to a dear friend. If you mess up, say, "It's okay, I'm learning, I'll do better next time." This shift from self-judgment to self-compassion allows you to grow without being weighed down by guilt. One of the most beautiful aspects of inward generosity is giving yourself permission to rest. Society often glorifies overworking, pushing yourself to the brink to prove your worth. But Buddhism teaches that rest is not laziness, it's essential. Set boundaries around your time. Allow yourself to say no without feeling guilty. Resting doesn't make you weak, it makes you stronger by preserving your energy for when you truly need it. Sometimes, inward generosity means forgiving yourself for not being perfect. You might hold on to guilt from past mistakes, feeling like you need to constantly atone for them. But holding on to guilt is like clutching a burning coal. It only hurts you. Practice forgiving yourself by acknowledging the mistake, making amends if necessary, and then letting it go. Tell yourself, "I'm allowed to learn and move on." It's important to recognize that being generous with yourself also involves setting boundaries. You can't keep saying yes to everyone without considering your own capacity. When someone asks for your time or energy, pause and ask yourself, "Do I genuinely have the space for this right now?" If the answer is no, give yourself permission to decline. Saying no when you're overwhelmed is not selfish, it's self-preservation. Inward generosity also means celebrating your achievements, no matter how small. Often, we downplay our successes, thinking they're not worth acknowledging. But every step forward matters. Did you complete a task you'd been dreading? Take a moment to congratulate yourself. Did you make it through a tough day? Acknowledge that resilience. You deserve to be proud of your efforts, even when they seem insignificant. Another crucial part of inward generosity is allowing yourself to feel. We often suppress our emotions because we think they're inconvenient or weak, but emotions are natural and deserve space to be expressed. If you're sad, cry without judgment. If you're frustrated, vent without guilt. By giving yourself permission to feel, you validate your own humanity. Meditation can be a powerful tool to practice inward generosity. Instead of focusing on clearing your mind, focus on filling yourself with compassion. Sit quietly, place your hand over your heart, and repeat gentle affirmations. I deserve kindness. I am worthy of love. I forgive myself. Let these words soak into your being. You're not just saying them. One beautiful story from Buddhism teaches us about self-care through the metaphor of a gardener. A wise monk once said, "You are like a garden. If you never tend to your own soil, your flowers will wilt and weeds will take over. Nurture yourself and you will bloom, not just for yourself, but for everyone who comes to your garden." Being inwardly generous doesn't mean being self-centered. It means understanding that you can't pour from an empty cup. When you care for yourself, you build a stronger, more resilient version of you. This means that when you do give to others, it's with a full heart rather than a depleted spirit. People will feel the difference when your kindness comes from a place of abundance rather than sacrifice. If you ever feel guilty for practicing self-care, remind yourself that you're not abandoning your responsibilities. You're preparing yourself to meet them with strength and positivity. Think of inward generosity as building a foundation. The stronger your foundation, the more support you can offer to others without collapsing under the pressure. Start small. Dedicate just a few minutes each day to do something purely for your own well-being. Whether it's a walk in nature, a quiet cup of tea, a short meditation, or simply resting without distractions. Let that time be yours, without guilt or interruption. Make it a ritual, a sacred moment to refill your well. When you cultivate inward generosity, you transform your relationship with yourself. You become kinder, more patient, and more understanding toward your own journey. You stop seeing self-care as indulgence and start recognizing it as a necessity. Over time, this habit makes you emotionally resilient because you're not constantly running on empty. You have reserves of compassion and strength, not just for others but for yourself. You deserve to treat yourself with the same kindness and compassion you offer to others. Embrace inward generosity as a way to honor your own worth, to build a sustainable source of love within yourself. When you nurture your own heart, you become a wellspring of positivity, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. That's the power of being generous with yourself. It doesn't just heal you, it also makes you a light for others. 9. Practice unlearning to grow. Hook. Could letting go of knowledge make you wiser? We accumulate beliefs and ideas, but not all of them serve us. Buddhism encourages unlearning outdated thoughts and habits. Reflect on a belief that no longer aligns with your growth and consciously let it go. This practice makes you adaptable, open to change, and unbreakable when life challenges your perspective. 10. Establish a ritual of surrender. Hook. What if letting go could give you more control? Surrendering doesn't mean giving up. It means letting go of what you cannot control. At the end of each day, practice a ritual of surrender. Light a candle, take a deep breath, and verbally release your worries. Acknowledge that you've done your best, and let the universe handle the rest. This ritual creates a profound sense of peace, making you less vulnerable to stress and anxiety. Being emotionally unbreakable isn't about being invulnerable. It's about transforming vulnerability into strength. These Buddhist-inspired habits are your pathway to a resilient soul and an unshakable spirit. Adopt them one by one, and watch how your life transforms. If this message inspired you, subscribe for more powerful insights. Remember, you are not just surviving, you are thriving, unbreakable, and infinitely capable.